Okay, so what we passed out is the Article 8, Section A, and Appendix A that we've been passing out. And I wrote tentative agreement on it just because we just closed the deal with ASOP last week and I got tired of writing TI on everything. So this is wishful thinking on our part. I'm going to give you the same speech that we gave to PBA and we gave to ASOP. And now we're giving it to you. We've given it verbally to SEIU because we haven't been at the table with them. These are very tense and stressful times. We are very concerned about our deteriorating budget. As you know, Florida education is funded through property tax and sales tax. With Disney shutting down, Universal shutting down, and now a lot of local businesses, chains shutting down possibly for 2 weeks, that is going to affect our sales tax revenue in unprecedented levels. So we have the money set aside for the raises for everybody at 3%. We would like to get it to you now. We have a board meeting right now, as far as I know, fingers crossed, scheduled for Wednesday night. We're taking ASOP, the principals, AP, staff, and miscellaneous to the board on Wednesday. We would like to get a deal with everybody else. PBA told us they needed a membership meeting and they walked away from the table. So we don't know when we're getting back to the table with them. We would like to get the money in your hands as soon as possible. We think it would behoove everybody to do that. And then the language that anything left outstanding is just status quo. We kick it down the road to the next time when we have a better picture of where we are and what our finances look like. So this is a 3% split out like we had mentioned before. The only thing new that you hadn't seen is the new hires placement schedule, and that's on page 3 of the Appendix A. There's a new hire placement schedule, and before we had 0 to 2 years, 3 to 4 years, 5 to 6. We've now split that apart and changed those levels because there was an issue with about, I think at last count I heard from payroll, was there were about 9 people really that were affected that got more coming in than what a veteran teacher had at the same level. That problem happened because we didn't adjust this new hire schedule last time. Remember, we brought it to the table. We said, oh, no, we don't need to do anything with it. We'll leave it. There were a group of teachers who have been effective for a number of years rather than highly effective, and so their pay dropped below what was here. We paid people in accordance with the new hire placement schedule. There is a provision that says people can't get paid at a higher rate, but both of them were negotiated, and neither party saw it coming. We're going to talk about what we do to ameliorate the issue if we can at a later date, but this would be the new hire placement schedule where that's not going to occur on a go-forward basis. So are there any questions? This proposal isn't anything you haven't already seen.
So just to be clear on the pay discrepancies, because I've been trying to track down the district's response on that for some time, there's no intention to make whole the individuals that were agreed?
We have some ideas, but we want to talk to you about them first. And why is it that when they tell you not to touch your face that your face constantly itches? But just a whole aside there. But what we're doing is we're working with payroll. We have, if I think there was 3 options to look at, we need to sit down with you. We just have not physically had the time to do it.
Gotcha. So we might need to caucus on that, but I have some apprehension about agreeing to the changes to the scale without knowing the district's planned remedy for what's already transpired. I'm sure.
I don't know how this would affect that. That is something that we have to discuss because, obviously there was an issue. We have, I think, 3 different options of trying how to fix it because some people under this idea were overpaid and some people were underpaid. So how do we fix that? We don't want to take money away from people, but at the same time, we have to do something that's affordable. There aren't a lot of the proposals that I saw vary in scope of how we do it, but we have a plan, and I think that can be accomplished outside bargaining. This is for a go-forward basis. That doesn't negate anything, and we have this on tape, so you hear me saying this does not negate any problem we had with it over the last year. This is just on a go-forward basis, starting on July 1. This would be the new schedule.
Okay, I do see the new schedule here, but I see that there's somewhere the amounts adjusted are lower than the current
Correct.
level on the schedule.
Because they went back and looked at, they had to take those teachers who've been with us for a while who have not been highly effective and see where they were. And so on some levels, you'll see where we had to drop the new hire salary to compensate for those employees who have not been highly effective, because their salary is not as high as a highly effective. So that's why those adjustments were made. Some of them you'll see it went higher, some went lower, and it's really based on where our current veteran teachers are today.
Well, anytime you're making an adjustment, particularly down in the employee's salary.
This isn't anybody who works for us now. This is
Right.
the people we're going to be hiring.
Right. But let me just say that it's the salary for bargaining unit members when they come in.
Correct.
And so whatever that salary level is of some importance to us. And
No, I completely understand, but
Okay.
if we don't do these measures, we're going to continue to have that problem where we're paying new hires more than what we're paying current employees. Your current members will end up making less than a new hire who have the same number of experience unless we fix it in this manner.
all right. We'll definitely have to caucus on that.
Okay, the other ones, if you're interested, and this, I only made one copy for you, one copy for me, on Article 3B, employee hours and conditions. Section A, paid leave,
I don't.
and Article 8N, Appendix D, those would all be status quo. They would revert to status quo, and that's all this is what I have would be that we just leave the language as is for now.
Okay, you said 8N, we'll leave it as is?
Yes. Eight N is the mandatory in-service. Appendix D is the additional period supplement. All of these, the paid leaves, a lot of these, they require money to do that. And as I said, the state of Florida is hemorrhaging money out of the budget every single day at this point. So we cannot go and say we're going to acquire new recurring costs that are not already figured into the budget. We just financially, and we don't, that would be fiscally irresponsible of us at this point to do something like that. And I get, I understand all that we've talked about before and where we want to go with this agreement. I'm with you on some things that I think need to be changed, but right now, we just don't know that we have the time to do that. If we don't settle today, I don't know that we'll be open at the beginning of April to come back to the table. I'm just being completely honest. So it's on a day-to-day basis of where we are as a country and what we're going to be doing in 2 weeks from now. So I want to get the money to the teachers now so they have it rather than wait. We can certainly do that. This is not we were accused by PBA of pressuring them with our urgency. It's not our urgency. It really isn't, because we can leave the money in the budget where it is. It's more about trying to be fair to our employees to make sure that they have what they need. And if you're not interested, that's fine. We're not really comfortable with having a really long bargaining session today. We'd like to see if we can get a deal quickly. If we can't, then we have a lot of work on this side of the table that we're having to do right now to try and move things forward. And I know that you guys don't want to be out in public any more than you already are. So with that being said, if you want to caucus, we can leave the room and give you the room. But if you have any questions or you'd like to hear from Mr. Burke, we can certainly do that.
Well, we definitely need to caucus as it relates to the placement schedule. On the salary issue, we do have a bit of a challenge there. Like you said, that there are issues, in the country now that makes it prudent to go ahead and settle, and so we would definitely like to do that. However, we believe in looking at this one year at a time, and the reason we held our original position was because we felt that the dollars were available for us this year. We didn't just say 4.5 because we thought that was some magical number in the air. It was what we looked at the finances, and we saw certain things that happened as it relates to the fund balance in the past 3 years, and so we felt that was something that was affordable. But in light of the change in this country and in the state, and particularly what the legislature did to the district's budget, potentially for next year, we feel that we do need to move away from our original position of 4.5, and we do feel though that some consideration could be given to us as it relates to where we move to from 4.5, and we believe that we have to be mindful of any additional funds that we may request at this time because of the challenges that face us. And so, our hearts are with you in that, but at the same time, we feel that we do have a responsibility to present a strong position in support of what we believe to be true. Nothing that has happened has changed, this year's situation, directly, but we do feel that because of what's happening in the future, we do need to make an adjustment. And so, as a result of all that, and honoring the financial position that the state legislature, particularly next year, is putting the district in, we're set to propose 3.5.
We anticipated that. We talked to the board, and this was pre-global pandemic. The board said no, that they're not comfortable going into the reserves, and that was before this happened. I don't anticipate that has changed. That position has changed at all. I'll let Mr. Burke speak to that.
Right. So we kind of set out to, we've had a 3% in the budget all year, and kind of in the spirit of fairness, we thought we'd make one last pass by the unions. Now, this started a week or two ago, and things were actually not as dire at that point. Kind of the logic is, this is this year's budget. We had the money set aside. We have a contingency reserve. We have some reserves. The state is building their budget. They've enhanced their reserves a little bit, about $300 million on top of the $1 billion that they already had in place. But there's a lot of uncertainty about the financial future of the school district at this point. And as each day goes by, I'm having a harder and harder time making the argument that this is the fair thing to do. Broward it looks like they're gonna follow through with their 2% raises. Many of the districts across the state have already settled. So we're trying to draw a line and say, look, this is what we plan to do this year. Let's try to honor that, and then we'll take what's thrown at us in the months and potentially longer ahead, like we had to go through the recession and make some pretty significant budget cuts. And I value our partnership. I think we're probably going to have to spend some more time together as these things develop and figure out ways to keep the schools running on whatever money we're able to bring in. But that was the idea behind one more pass at 3%. If you don't accept it, that's okay. We will continue to bargain. And also, everything that we're putting together to bring to the board on Wednesday night is subject to the board's approval. I wouldn't bring a recommendation and I wouldn't ask the superintendent to bring something I thought that was going to blow up. But I expect to have a conversation around, what is our financial forecast? Can we afford this? And some of the questions are actually kind of impossible to answer at this point. We're in uncharted territory. The Federal Reserve has cut the interest rate to 0. We could see the negative interest in our future like some of the other countries. The state, Ms. Evans-Pray had exactly right. State general revenue, sales tax, and local property taxes are the two major revenue sources for education in our state. And sales tax is already hurting, and we'll have to see what happens with property values. Hopefully they'll be a little more resilient. So anyway, you guys are watching the news. It's bad news on all fronts. The state did go ahead and approve a budget. The FRS rates have been approved, so we know we're going to have that increase. They did put $500 million towards teacher pay next year, and I know it's not crafted the way we would have preferred it. So we're going to have to wrestle with that. But I will say the state budget, as much as it's been put together and they'll vote on it later this week, history tells me that budget can change, and that we will probably see a special session at some point where they'll have to come in once they get a handle on the revenue forecast and probably have to start making reductions. I think that's safe to say. I don't know when. It could be after the election. It could be December or something. We'll see. It depends how dire things are. But we went through this in 2008 where they had 2 special sessions and cut funding, they cut funding over $1,000 per student during that recession. We did get help with the federal stimulus. That's another kind of unknown at this point. So there truly is a lot of uncertainty, and we're going to do our best to wade through it. And that's pretty much it.
So if you'd like, we can give you the room. We'll step outside.
You said that you've already settled with the principals?
The principals, APs, they're not a union. It's meet and confer. And ASOP, it's 3%. There is some.
The non-bargaining unit has been saying for months they agreed to 3%. The school-based administrators, principals, we're taking the same approach, but we're trying to set that meeting up. I have not actually met with them. That may happen today as well.
So they haven't settled. You don't know what type of compensation or additional monetary incentives they plan to bargain for or you to agree to?
It's meet and confer, so it's really
more
with them. What the superintendent's willing to do, but that hasn't been finalized. They're on the list. We reached out to SEIU as well. I'm not sure if that's going to happen or not.
I don't know. I was emailing them on Saturday to see if they could come in this week, but I haven't heard back from them.
Okay. Because just as an aside, the concern that our members have expressed is that while we tend to bear the brunt of the negotiations for salary, which makes sense obviously because of the size of our bargaining unit, that usually after we settle, other units or groups through what you just said, not bargaining, but through dialogue, end up getting the percent we do, but then the normal argument that anytime we want additional compensation through some other means has to come against our raise, then they end up settling for our raise and additional compensation. So I'm just putting that out there, that's something that members have started to complain about, that anytime we ask for anything that costs money outside of raises, we get told we have to buy it ourselves through raises. But then if other employee units get the same raise as us and then get extra compensation changes as well in their contract, it's as if only we have to buy our additional compensation changes in the contract, and other units, some other units, seem to not have to follow that rule. That's a concern that's been raised to us.
And I get that. I can tell you right now with ASOP, there's 4 job classifications that we had to raise because they're below market and have been for a couple years now. Particularly 3 of them are all in our dispatch, basically our school district 911. They were extremely below market. So we've raised those up just 1 level. So they're going to get 5 in lieu of the 3. And then I think the adult and community ed secretaries were below market, but the rest of them were not. We do raise those when we have a market issue. You'll see for SEIU, I think it was last year, there were a lot of skilled trades for HVAC, the carpenters, because of the demand for them. We were not able to hire. So when we have an inability to hire and we're below market, we have to bring those hourly rate jobs up to the market. So they do, in some cases, have that. ASOP, it's 3%. for their of the 3% pot for their unit, they did something a little different in that they have compression that was not fixed by a referendum. So they asked to have the people who have only been here a year get 1%, and then the people who've been here for, and it's graduated, the most anybody gets is 3.6, and it's a small group at the very top who've been here more than 12 years, but that was to fix compression because they didn't get any of the referendum dollars the teachers got. So we do have that, but it is they bought that from their 3%. They met with Mark and his team to say, okay, how can we spread this 3% the same way PBA did the year before? How can we take our 3% and spread it a little differently? Unfortunately, with your group, we can't do that because statutorily we're told how we can pay you, which is ridiculous in and of itself. But so that's what we've done with ASOP, but it is a 3%. And they have in their contract that if we settle for more with you, they get that. So the other units, if we do settle with them, are going to want the Me Too language. If you want Me Too language, if somebody gets more than you that's a bargaining unit, we can certainly put that in your contract as well. I don't think it's necessary. You're the biggest unit. So, we usually don't give anybody any more than we give you. Someone said you guys are the tail that wagged the dog, and I told them, no, you guys are the dog and 2/3 of the tail. So,
Well, definitely we wouldn't reject having that language included as well. The other so we'll accept that.
okay.
The other thing though is non-monetary, at least not directly, and that is the mandatory in-service issue where we're trying to get some time for teachers to do the required in-services because of the major increase in those. And we...
I'm listening.
We're asking that, you honor our requests on that side. I mean, in terms of language, because that's not a direct dollar cost of those other items you said that are kind of hanging out there. And we believe that teachers need some time given for getting these things done, because there's not enough time during the regular school day or work time in order to get these done.
I can certainly, we've taken that to our academic folks, and we've taken it up the chain of command, and they said that they did not want to do that. They feel that there is a lot of work that needs to be done at the beginning of the school year, that they cannot be handicapped in such a way that they would be limited on time that they get with their faculty, that they are going to work with their faculty, make sure they have time to do it, but doing it in preschool wouldn't necessarily address all of the issues you have. A lot of the trainings that we have are throughout the course of the year rather than just being one time. They will not give up the PD days. That was a hard no on giving up a half of every PD day. First off, that doesn't affect all your teachers equally. We felt that would be a disservice to, I think who it is, your secondary teachers who have fewer PD but more duty. They have one more duty than the PD just because the way the semester's 9 weeks end. I can certainly give a call upstairs to see if they're willing to move on that, but my understanding was let's just get the money and we'll deal with the language later.
Well, again, the concern is, we're coming to the table, you're asking us to make compromise. I'm kind of like PBA, you kind of push things out there to some extent.
We're letting you know what
we're letting you know I
what our situation
understand.
is. If
I
you
get
don't
it.
want to take the money, that's fine, and we'll bargain as soon as we're able to.
That's
again,
not weird. Again, what I'm saying is it seems like where you say there is a strain, there's still no movement on our side. And so what I'm saying is, this is an area that has been a major concern, and as you know, daily throughout this year, teachers have been given mandatory things that they have to do as it relates to in-service. And it's just, they're just inundated with these different things coming up. Initially, we tried to outline the amount of time that they were taking to get it done, but you can see with the things that have come in since that time, it's just too numerous. And so we just feel that sometime honoring their time is of benefit. Now, because what you're saying is one set of time is important and another set of time is not as important. So we're just asking that teachers be given some consideration. And I can tell you, you're absolutely right that what we're asking for will not give enough time for teachers to get it all done. But at least it would acknowledge that they do have to do extra time, and it gives them some time to be able to get it done during the workday. That's what we're asking for.
So what exactly are you asking for? One half of one day during preschool, or what exactly? Because I'm going to send an email right now to upper leadership. What exactly are you looking for?
Yeah, I believe our last offer,
I thought it was one half of a preschool day or one PD day.
We're looking for one full PDD day
That's not going to happen.
or 2 halves. And like you said, since these trainings aren't all front-loaded at the first week of school, it might be more ideal to give a half of a PDD day in the first and second semester so that in the fall they can chip away at some of what they have, and then in the spring they can chip away at some of what they have.
Okay.
So one half of one day in the fall, one half of one day in the spring, where no meetings or other mandates can be imposed on that time. And teachers are instructed, it's not just, go do whatever you want to do, instructed to go work on trainings that are still outstanding for them, but required by district or state law.
Okay.
I guess we just can't rely on a hurricane or virus to take care of this for us, right? And free up some time.
We've got kind of gallows humor going on this side of the table. Sorry.
They're weird times.
Yeah, well, we've been working a lot more hours this last week. So what we can do is we can give you the room to caucus. I'll see what I can do on this. I'll see if I get an answer anytime soon. Obviously, we're busy. We're trying to prepare in case we have to be closed longer than what we've already said we would close. Trying to get a lot of online learning done. And I just got an answer back. The answer to that is no. They're not willing to give up the half of the PD. So we'll let you caucus. I know these are just different times than we've ever been in before. We would just like for your consideration. We just would like, it's not that we're going to stop these conversations. We can continue having them. What I would like to do in the off season, if we could get a deal today, is to schedule some meetings that are outside bargaining, so we have some of these people come to the table with those issues that you have, and we can talk about it and maybe get more traction. We have something called Quality Public Service Councils with SEIU. We haven't got them up and running yet, but the food service does a marvelous job with it, where they meet quarterly and discuss issues that the food service managers have with their management team, and they come up with solutions themselves and then bring it to upper level to see if the solutions they have, or if they have a problem that they can't quite fix, to try and get more people at the table with expertise to figure out, is there a way to come up with an answer. So we can certainly set up some of these type things. We have one with the ESE that we've been meeting with, not as frequently as either of us would like, but we can set up meetings to talk about some of these things in the off season, to try and address them, so when we come to the table we already have some ideas of where we could go. So we'll give you the room to caucus unless you had anything further.
Yeah, just kind of know that it's difficult to accept not honoring teachers' time.
Theo, it's not that we don't honor their time. It's we're trying right now. We're under a lot of pressure and stress right now to
Right, I
try and
understand.
get a lot of things done. We invited you to the table. We could have waited and said we'll meet in April. Fingers crossed, we're still here.
Well, let's not do anything
So-
that might not be good. But I understood.
That's what I get it. That's why we
Right.
want to try and
Right.
get the money to the teachers.
I get it.
Okay,
I
it's
get it.
not that we don't value your teachers' time, and I don't appreciate you saying that like we do. That's
Well,
not it.
well, let me just say this now. I only say that against the backdrop of, one person has needed time and another person doesn't. That's what I'm comparing it to, and I'm just saying there should be some kind of balance there. That's what I'm asking
No,
for.
and I understand that. I totally understand that. But doing it the way you want to do it is not going to help your elementary teachers. it's only going to help the secondary. So we'd like to figure out a way that it helps both, because elementaries don't have as many PD days. No, vice versa. Sorry, work days.
Well,
So
we've tried to address that in the past because the elementary teachers have demanded of us to get them the day after Christmas break to become a duty day so they can perform whatever other obligations they feel they have, but the district has rejected that. So that lack of parity that's being referenced is a direct result of not accepting a change that would have made it equal. The concern we have, and someone could correct me if I'm wrong, even though PLCs are optional and they're supposed to be ran by teachers in their best interest to improve their capacity in the classroom, everyone knows that is not the case in many schools, which means that over the past 2 years, optional or otherwise, administrators, particularly in elementary schools, have gotten tens of hours of additional time to provide what they need to provide teachers as far as PD time that they want to put on them. They've created, again, hours and hours of additional opportunities for them to do the things that you're mentioning, but there has been not a minute created to allow teachers to perform the mandatory PD in service from the state and from the district. So per what the executive director is saying, and we're not trying to be rude or kind of beat this, what I don't think is a dead horse, I think it's a valid argument to be made and agreed to, is that all sorts of considerations have been given to one side to give them more time to do what they say is critical, while literally no consideration has been given to the other side to do things that if they don't do, they could be terminated or they could lose their certificate. So it's however important it is to administrators at whatever grade level to have that PD time, it is equally, if not more important, for our employees to get it. Otherwise, it's just one more example of basically being told without having it verbalized that you're going to do this off the clock for free, or you're going to lose your certificate or lose your job. So
Well, I don't think we've ever said you're going to lose your job. And if there are principals who are saying that, then again, we need to know who they are. If principals are abusing this, we can't fix problems without knowing where the problems lie. So like we've said before, if principals are doing things they shouldn't be doing, you guys need to let us know. We can't operate well, I appreciate what you've said, and we've heard it, and I understand it. And we can continue talking about this at a later date if you would like. The answer right now that I was just provided was that they are not willing to move on that right now. But the offers are on the table, so we will give you the room.
Can I ask a question?
sure.
Yeah,
Have you asked the principals? Because I've had some principals say to me they're willing to give up half a PDD day for their employees to do some of this mandatory training.
We have not polled the principals, no. We've polled the upper level leadership that makes those determinations.
Okay, that's the only reason I'm asking is because I have had some conversations with some of my principals, and they have said, because what they would do would be a group, go to the media center. Okay, we got to do the safety ladder one. It's going to take us a half an hour. We'll have snacks. Do it.
But as soon as we do that, then we're mandating what the teachers do, and that is not what you're asking for.
We're asking you to mandate that they be given an allotted period of time to do training. And to Denise's point, because I've heard it too, through the same principles, because obviously we discuss what goes on in the schools, is this, my questions seem pointed at administrators in schools that they take this extra time or they take this PLC time, but, by the statements you're making, it's really, they're the middleman here. Some of them aren't in agreement that all this time is necessary during the PDD days, and you could give some of that back to the teachers. So I sympathize with the administrators in the schools, because it seems as though we're attacking them. But if it's a group of people in this building who are making that decision and thrusting that on administrators in the school, and then they've got to be the messenger that gives that bad news that you have to do this stuff on your own, you have to do what we want right now during PDD, it creates, people believe it's the principals that are doing this. Like, people believe it is the administrators in the school saying, here's a PDD day, you're going to do all these things that we want, But there are principals who've conveyed to us that they would be fine giving some time back because they do understand that these teachers are doing it off the clock, essentially.
What I'm saying by the mandate is the decision of whether to give this time in the contract is from above of my job grade.
Right.
What they do on PD duty days, I don't have that knowledge of whether some of it's pushed out by curriculum, some of it's not. I don't have that knowledge base. So I wouldn't say that if a principal wanted to give time, can't because we're telling them no. I don't believe that's to be the case.
Well, the point I'm trying to make is, you know, that schools can't run with teachers working 7.5-hour days, and so they do give time already. What we're asking for is to honor them, and as it relates to this required training, we're not talking about principals doing something to them. This is where the state and the federal government says you must provide this particular training. Those are the trainings we're really talking about. So they didn't say that if you don't do these trainings, you're going to lose your certificate. This is said by the state or the federal government. So we're just asking that they be given some consideration as to when they can get this additional work that's being placed on them done other than their own private time. You know, I can tell you, you know, my time in the school center, I probably spent 3 or 4 hours a day, additional time in doing things. And what I'm asking for is at least give them recognition of time to do this additional stuff that they're asked, these additional requirements that they're required to do. You know, and I mean, I realize that yes, they want to do the PDD and they want to be able to do those things. But one of the ways, even with the PLCs, we're in agreement that we think PLCs can be a good thing. Just how they're done was the issue. You know, that was a concern. And so, again, we're just asking. I don't know if they're hearing what we're saying. It's not asking for a whole lot. We're asking for a little time to do the things that they are required to do in order to carry out their jobs. This is not something extra they want to do to have a good time. This is something they want to do to be able to do their job.
Okay,
All right?
understood.
So we'll caucus and we'll see if we can come to some positive result.
That would be great. Thank you.